Tom, I want to talk a little bit about deacons and elders, the relationship between deacon and elders, and also, we use the term board, and understand that's not a biblical term, but it is a way for us to reference the unique responsibility, because in our culture and according to the laws of our land, there's certain requirements that have to be met even in the context of a church. So when we talk elders, we talk elder board or elder leadership. Typically, part of that means that those men are going to meet once a month or twice a month, whatever it is, and part of their role is going to be managing the business of the church. Mm-hmm. Well, then you have deacons, and in some churches, what they would call a deacon board that also meets and makes decisions. I would like you to talk about, because when you came here, it was one direction, and then you were part of making a change that I thought was very helpful here at Countryside. And so explain what you see as the differences between the elders and deacons, and why you would have one function more as a board and the other not so much.
Yeah, well, I think, you walk that path with me as we walk through that, but I think it really comes back in my mind to what are the roles really? Elders are clearly responsible to oversee the life of the church. They are teachers, but they are leaders. And they're leaders not just in their own specific ministry, but they're leaders of the entire church together. And so it makes perfect sense for them to meet together to work through decisions related to the oversight of the entire church, both its spiritual life as well as its administrative and logistical issues as well. When it comes to deacons serve in a different capacity. And I know you agree with this, but I think deacons are clearly an office. Philippians 1 is very clear that in a small church like the church in Philippi, there were the members of the church, and then there were these two offices, elders and deacons. And so the question is, what are deacons? What is their function? The word itself and sort of a prototype of deacons, I'm not sure it's the office of deacons, but a prototype in Acts 6. When you put that together with the qualifications laid out in 1 Timothy 3, it seems clear that deacons are not teachers. They're not expected to be that. But they do lead. They're leaders of ministry. They're not just those who serve in the church, because every Christian's been gifted to serve, right? Mm-hmm. And ought to be serving. Right. So it's an office, and so they're doing something related to serving. And the best way, I think, to understand that is that they are providing leadership for serving ministries. And so the question comes then, what is the benefit of having them meet as a board? What are they going to talk about? Because they're over their own specific ministries. They're not over the church or a large portion of the church together. Mm-hmm. That's a strange, honestly, it's a strange combination of sort of the single elder deacon board model, trying to marry that with a plurality of elders. Mm-hmm. And they don't marry very well, because in the end, what you have, and this is what we saw and what we see in other churches, is you have this duplication that takes place, because the elders are going to be making some decisions that aren't strictly spiritual.
Right.
They're going to be talking about things like budget. They're going to be talking about things having to do with the overarching plan for the facilities and so forth. And so if one group of men meets and makes one decision, and then the other group of men meets and makes another decision, it creates so much conflict, so much misunderstanding and confusion in the function of the life of the church. And there is no biblical warrant for the deacons meeting together to make decisions about the entire life of the church in any regard. There's no warrant for that. Instead, they're over specific ministries. And so the way it's structured here, and we changed this, when I first came, as you know, we had the elder board, we had a deacon board. We disbanded the meeting for the deacons where they met together to make decisions. And now the deacons report individually to specific elders pertaining to their specific ministry. And then at least a couple times a year, they interact with the elders as a whole to explain, where their ministries are and what's going on, sort of give a report. But they're not making decisions about areas outside of their specific ministry, because that creates, again, great confusion. And you get conflicting decisions made by these two groups.
Yeah, that's what I think. When you came and made that change, as our leadership made that change, I thought, that brought such a sense of relief, because you did sense, intentionally or unintentionally, that there is a bit of conflict with who's making what decisions and what level of authority do they have to make those decisions. And additionally, men who are serving well as deacons, if they hadn't been recognized to be deacons, and we talked to them, some of them didn't want to become deacons if that meant that you're going to add to their role this responsibility to meet with a group of men to make all of these decisions that were completely outside the realm of their role that they were fulfilling well. And so for them, it's like, well, no, why would I want to do that? I'm doing what I love to do, and that would make my life far more complicated. And so it just seemed like it created such a better, clearly, a better relationship between the men who were serving well, had elders to connect with, elders who wanted to hear about their ministries, support their ministries. The dynamic was, in my opinion, so much more healthy. And I've lived in that world, and you've seen it and probably lived there as well, where you had deacons, they're responsible over the finance, the elders are responsible, and so the elders are saying, no, we don't want to do it. No, wait a minute, and you have those tensions, and we created that.
Yeah, confusion and conflict.
And it doesn't need to be like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I think once you make that shift and change, it creates so much of a spirit of calmness and unity that we now know how we relate to one another and we move forward.
Yeah.
I think even in our own church, obviously, if there are men who are used to meeting on a board as deacons, there might be some initially who hate not to have that opportunity, but not for most of them.
Right.
For most of them, they were thrilled not to have another meeting on top of the normal ministry they had, the leadership of a ministry that they were responsible for. And it created a working relationship between the elders and deacons where, you have a deacon over a ministry, and now he has the latitude to make many decisions related to that ministry.
Right.
He's the leader of that ministry. But if he has a question, if he has issues, challenges, whatever, he has a direct line to the elder board through the elder that he's reporting to. And so it just created a sort of synergy that was perfect for those who are leading and serving ministries and the elders who are leading the entire church.